L'chaim. So we will learn from a test lesson with Rabash. We'll read from Baal HaSulam's 10 Sefirot, study of the Sefirot, part 5. We're in the inner light item 46. We'll enter the lesson with Rabash.
We must, page 339, column 2, we must also understand here. We must also understand here that there are 3 divisions in the lower 7, which are the phases of Rosh, Toch, Sof. The first are Chesed and Gvura of Ze'alpin, of the 7 lower Sefirot, which are the phase of Rosh of Vak. The second are Tiferet and Netzach, which are the phase of Toch of Vak. The third are Hod, Yesod, Malchut. These three he calls the Sof, and they are the phase of Sof of the Vak. It turns out accordingly that he counts only Vak. Malchut joins the Sof of the Vak. And we also need to know the matter of expanding and not expanding, that sometimes there is the light of Chokhmah in the degree, and sometimes there is no light of Chokhmah in the degree. And this depends only on Keter and Chokhmah, and not on the other qualities. Even though we say 2 distances, Keter and Bina, here he summarizes, this depends only on Keter. Expanding in Keter, there is no Chokhmah. If not expanding in Keter, then there is Chokhmah. Why? It is because of the posterior of Keter denies the illumination of Ga from the entire Parzuf. What is the posterior of Keter? We learned that the light of Keter that departed from Parzuf Galgalta stands with its face upward and its posterior downward. In that form, it dominates the vessel of Keter, which previously had, when it was inside the vessel, that had phase 4 of coarseness, and now there is no phase of coarseness, only phase 4 of clothing. It dominates the vessel so that it would be only the posterior, meaning Chasadim, which is why there cannot be illumination of Ga in the Parzuf. Here he calls Ga Chokhmah, except when Keter's dominion is cancelled, meaning by refining the coarseness in the screen in him, which belongs to his level. Because phase 4 of clothing coupled, at that time the light departs from Keter. Then Keter no longer dominates its vessel. We spoke only of there being phase 4 of clothing, lacking phase 4 of coarseness. It guards the phase 4 so that nothing will expand below. Therefore, nothing shines there except Chasadim. Whereas if there is no phase 4 of clothing, it was refined, and there is phase 3 of coarseness. Phase 3 of coarseness is below, and phase 2 further. Certainly it can shine because there is already a screen of phase 3 here. Therefore, he says, and Its residue is from Keter, expanding in Chokhmah, from which appears illumination of Gar in the Partzuf. Now, Chokhmah can be in the entire degree. You're asking, what is the meaning of when he says the light of Keter that belongs to its quality? That's what you're asking, right? Look, he says the following. When the coarseness in the screen in him was refined, which belongs to his level, meaning phase 4, then it rose. Who? The light of Keter. Only the level of Chokhmah and the level of it allows to shine. Only when Keter shines, since there is no screen of coarseness, only clothing, one can draw more. According to its level, it is prepared, as if it guards that nothing will shine except Chasadim, not Chokhmah. But when the level of Keter is refined, the level of Chokhmah is allowed to shine. Why not? Further, hence, it is expanding in Keter. If it is expanding in Keter, if the light shines in Keter, phase 4/3, illumination of Gar is denied even from the Chokhmah. Therefore, at that time, the phase of Vak, of the 7 lower Sefirot, control, namely the Vak of Rosh in them, which is the Sefirah of Gvura, and the Vak of Toch in them, which is Netzach, and the Vak of Sof in them, which is Yesod. What is written here? The entire picture in the Partzuf, Chokhmah or Chasadim, depends on Keter. It turns out, if I say expanding in Keter, then the light of Keter does not allow Chokhmah to shine, only Chasadim. It turns out that I'm speaking of Zer'anpin, which is Vak. It turns out the Rosh, Toch, Sof of it has no Chokhmah there. So he says Chesed, Gvura, that is Gar and Vak of the Rosh. Tiferet Netzach, Gar and Vak of the Toch. Hod Yesod, Gar and Vak of the Sof. It turns out that expanding in Keter does not shine, not in Chesed, not in Tiferet, and not in Hod. This is what it says here. If it is not expanding in Keter, meaning the domination of Keter no longer prevents Chokhmah from shining, then Chokhmah can be there. At which time it is expanding in Chokhmah. Then comes the control of the illumination of Gar in the Rosh, Toch Sof, of the 7 lower Sefirot, meaning their phase of illumination of Gar of Rosh, which is Chesed, and their phase of illumination of Gar of their Toch, which is Tiferet, and their phase of illumination of Gar of the Sof, which is Hod. From there comes the phase of Gar without the Vak to the Malchut. What is preferable? Gar without Vak, called Dalet over the Vav in the depiction of the letter Hey. You're asking, what is the meaning of face or anterior in the posterior of Keter? Regarding this, the meaning always depends on the context. Sometimes we speak of anterior and posterior. Anterior means it bestows, posterior means that it does not bestow. Sometimes we explain anterior regarding the type of abundance. Chokhmah, a person's wisdom illuminates their face. He calls Chokhmah the light of the face, and posterior the light of Chasadim. So it turns out that when Keter bestows, its face shines to the lower one. To whom? To Chokhmah. When does it bestow to Chokhmah? There's another meaning, face to face, meaning there is equivalence between them together. When can Keter bestow to Chokhmah? It is when not expanding in Keter, meaning its phase 4/3 was refined to 3/2. Then phase 3 of clothing, phase 2 of coarseness. That is the degree of the vessel of Chokhmah. When they are face to face, and then it bestows. What abundance does it bestow then? The quality of face, the quality of Chokhmah. Why? Chokhmah, it is able to bestow. Whereas when I say expanding in Keter, meaning it has phase 4/3, it cannot bestow to Chokhmah. Why? Chokhmah cannot receive from it. If so, what is the meaning of it bestowing chasadim? I just explained that he says when phase 4/3 shines in Keter, then the light of Keter that stands above, its face above, its posteriors below. The intention is that it does not allow shining to the lower ones, only chasadim. It turns out that Keter bestows only chasadim. Whereas when phase 4 is refined, that is not its degree, only chokhmah. Phase 3 of coarseness is in the degree and it allows the shining. Why? Why not? Now I ask a question. How do we say expanding in Keter? What shines below? They said phase 4/3. What can shine below? There is no face to face. Because for it to go down below, it needs to be a turning of the face, or not. It needs to have phase 3/2, already expanding in Chokhmah. According to this, the question arises: when do I say expanding in Keter? When it has phase 4/3. For it to shine Chokhmah in Chokhmah, when Chokhmah has phase 3/2. From the Ari. This Dalet means cessation of light from the Parzuf, because all the coarseness in the screen was refined and the coupling stopped. There is no reflected light to clothe the direct light any longer. And the direct light stops as well. And all this field return to the emanator, meaning through an incorporation of all the records in them inside the screen, as only the screen rises to the emanator. It is what's incorporated with all the records. That is to say, when is this? I learn. When it rises as man to Keter, then Keter once again becomes expanding and not expanding. It implies from here, as long as there is coarseness in the degree, but when all the coarseness in the degree is refined, I do not say it rises above, so that there would be again expanding in Keter. This too we need to understand.
נעבור לחלק הבא של השיעור, לימוד בין חברים.